Everything's being recorded right now.
Okay, do we have anybody on Zoom?
We're just getting up.
There we go.
Everything's being recorded right now.
All right.
Okay, do we have anybody on Zoom?
We're just,
It took a little bit to catch up
All right.
with the lips.
Okay, we're ready.
Yeah.
Welcome, everyone, to the October 24th, 2023 Planning Board meeting. We have just one public hearing tonight, so we will be going right from the public hearing to the deliberations, but we have some business to take care of a little bit before that. First of all, I want to introduce our new Planning Board and also Zoning Board and Conservation Board Clerk, Sharon Knight. This is her first meeting, so she's definitely in the learning mode. And that's to be expected. And I want to thank, while she's here, Amber Corbin, who has been filling in. Amber is the actually deputy supervisor, but has been filling in, doing a lot of the responsibilities of a number of the clerk positions in the absence of our prior clerk. I want to thank her again for that. The first order of business will be to approve the minutes from the prior meeting, which was September 26, 2023. I understand some of us may have not have a chance to see those. If that's a problem, we can postpone the approval until the next meeting. But has everybody had a chance to see them?
I have not.
You have not.
I have not.
You have not. Okay. I think the problem is they were in the derivation table where we keep the information for applications rather than in the document center, which is where unapproved, and approved meeting minutes would normally be. So unfortunately, we will delay that until the November meeting.
Scott, can I ask a question
Yep.
in that regard? In the future, going forward, will we be receiving, we used to get minutes sent to us on email
As an attachment for email,
as
from
an
an email.
attachment. Will we continue to get that?
It- It's probably sufficient if we got an email that said they're in the document center, so long as they're there. I think what happened in this case was a general note went out saying that there were new documents for the application and happened to be the meeting minutes put in the Zora application location. So I realized that happened, but I didn't realize that everybody else didn't figure that out. So what's your preference, Sharon? You want to send out an email with an attachment or an email saying that they will be located in the document center?
My recommendation to the board is that when the minutes are prepared within 1 week, that I send them to you in an email. If you would review them, respond if you have any changes, corrections, additions. Take a couple of days to do that. After 2 weeks, they are I'm legally responsible to post them. This gives you a chance to review because we won't meet for another month, maybe. Sometimes meetings are canceled, that takes it out another month. So within 2 weeks, I have to post them. Within 1 week, I want to send them to you all. Please respond back to me individually. If anything you'd like to change, I will do that. Actually, I'm missing a step because prior to sending them to all of you, I would like Scott to review them first.
So that is an additional step that we have not previously done. That is a suggestion and something that Sharon is willing to do. That is that after the meeting minutes are written, I will get a quick shot at them first. And then everybody, the rest of the members will get to look at them before the meeting, have a chance to send all the changes back to Sharon. So the unapproved minutes that get posted will be a lot closer to where we want them than in the past. We would still go through the approval process at the subsequent meeting. Sound okay?
Well, it's okay, except that this 2 week, I never heard of this 2 week requirement before. It's always been a month or 2 months, however long it was for the next board to review them, for the next board meeting.
Well, be careful. There's a difference between unapproved meeting minutes and approved meeting minutes. So I believe even the unapproved have to be posted within 2 weeks. I think that's the state requirement. So
Right.
those were probably getting posted somewhere, although maybe there's times they lapsed.
The posting is what's
Right.
required.
And my understanding is, E-code is not the official posting location. So where we're used to seeing them in the document center is, I believe, is not considered the official posting location. That is a legal requirement that I believe is done separately. Amber seems to disagree.
E-code is the official.
Okay,
I am. Looking back at this. We.
I don't know what the rules are here in the town of Rush to see if they override what the state requires. The state requires that they are available within 2 weeks. That maybe that means even to fill out a FOIL request to have them. That's on this end of the spectrum. On our end of the spectrum, we put agendas and minutes on equal. The official copy of minutes are on paper and filed in the town clerk's office. With
that's what I was saying.
and that, in the official minutes for you, if you choose to approve them, which I hope that you do, but legally you do not have to. The minutes are my responsibility. I bring them to you to ask if there are something that you approve, that you agree with, or if you want to make any changes. And then at the next meeting, that's when you would take a formal action.
Okay,
So again, the official posting you said is on somewhere here in the office.
They get filed with. the
Okay,
town.
that's the official posting. And that was my understanding.
Unless the town.
Yeah, okay.
The town has said something else.
but the approval is something that happens by the board.
When you're sitting
That's
here as a board. But as a courtesy to me and to you, send in amount to you ahead of time for you to make any changes, would reduce the amount of time that we talked about.
So what we would like to get to, and independent of the official posting of what would officially be unapproved. We want to get to the point where we have approved minutes in the document center and on E-code, I hope. And I hope that's compatible with whatever the town is required.
So I guess I'm confused because if I wrote to you in response to you sending the minutes to me and said I disagreed with such and such, you wouldn't be able to make those changes until the rest of the board weighed in on it, correct?
No, because the minutes are for me to do. So if you ask me to say that the light is green instead of red,
Right.
and I agree that it was said that it was green, then I'm gonna make the change that you request. It was an error on my
Oh,
part.
right, but I mean, if it's something other than, I really think that this should have been said this way or something.
If it was said, then more than likely I'm gonna put it in. My goal here is to not have a lot of your discussion. You talk for 2 hours, 3 hours a meeting. I am not a court stenographer. I don't keep up with everything you say. What I do keep up with, and I will slow you down if needed, any action that you take. I'm required to record all your actions.
So other members would have a chance to correct your corrections if we didn't like them at the approval stage.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't change the official minutes that she's posted. It hopefully would change the approved minutes in the document center on E-code. So it's a different process than we have used.
Right. And I hope that it works for all of us. It's worked for me. I have had minutes be approved by boards and it's not be approved by boards. I've been on both sides. My goal is that we work together to have your actions recorded properly. They're official documents forever kept by the town.
So the real difference for us is that we would be responding to you in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. We said we need to go out to Scott
thinking more
first.
days
Okay,
to meet that 2 week requirement.
okay, but you need to go out to Scott first.
And
then-
he's agreed to, do his
Yeah,
very best to have it done.
except that I was on vacation, I can turn it around pretty quickly.
Okay,
So
all right.
thank you for listening to my request to.
no, it's good.
make this work.
That's good.
Well, that, if that all works out, it's better than whatever we had in the past. So thank you for that.
Right.
Okay, I should have asked Sharon to do a roll call to establish our quorum, so we'll do that now, please.
Member Morse.
Moyes,
Morse.
present, it's okay, present.
Chairman Rock,
Present.
member Morelli,
Present.
and member Court.
Here.
Okay. So that just establishes we have a quorum and we can conduct official business this evening. Okay. I think we're actually up to the public hearing. Is there somebody here representing business? We'll get to you in just a minute. Feel free to come up in the meantime. Sharon, would you read the notice for that?
Legal notice of public hearing, Town of Rush Planning Board. Notice is hereby given that pursuant to the provisions of the Town of Rush and sections 274A and 274B of the town law, a public hearing will be held by the planning board of the Town of Rush at the Town of Rush Town Hall, 5977 East Henrietta Road, Rush, New York, 14543, on October 24th, 2023 at 7 p.m. to hear all persons interested in the following application. Application 2023-11P by Michael and Morgan Brown for the site plan approval for a new home. The parcel is located at Woodruff Road, Rush, New York, 14543, with a tax parcel ID number 226.01-01-1-1.2 and is zoned R30 residential. The public may also access the meeting via Zoom video conference. Instructions on accessing the video meeting are available on the town website at www.townofrush.com. Dated October 4th, 2023, by order of the Rush Planning Board, Sharon M. Knight, MMC, RMC Planning Board.
Okay, go ahead.
Good
Introduce
evening,
yourself,
everyone. My
please.
name is John Sharaba with Land Tech. It's been a little while since I've been down here presenting to the board. I appreciate a quieter room this time. So I'm here on behalf of the Brown family. Mike is here this evening, and it said, as the minutes have stated, they're looking to build a single family home on this 8.5 acre parcel. This means a lot to them. Mike's mother-in-law lives kitty corner to this property, and looking forward to raising their family in close proximity to his mother-in-law and family. The board may remember this subdivision. It was approved last year, Ron Zor subdivision. We went through a subdivision process and created this lot. And now it's time that we're looking for site plan approval for construction of a single family home.
And I will add and admit that we held it up for a while, waiting for the townwide drainage easement for the stream that's on the property. The good news is it's paying off now because it exists.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, so yeah, this site is I guess it's well known by the town and this board. So this lot itself is I can just go over a few of the features. On Woodruff Road in this area, there is no public sewer, there's no public water, and there's no gas. So we have we're proposing a drilled well and an in-ground leach field on this site. The lot is also encumbered with New York State regulated wetland. That wetland is generally within the wood lot that runs in the majority of the property along the east property line. And there's also a drainage easement, which is a private easement. You mentioned to the town. There's also one to Mr. Zora for access for that. He's got a little drainage way back there, so that's on there. The single family home is set back approximately 90 feet off the right of way. It's located about 140 feet from the north property line. The north property line is south and adjacent to the power lines. That leaves us about 370 feet from the south property line. As I mentioned, this is an in-ground leach field. We did PERC test with the Monroe County Health Department. PERC tests were very good. We had a 30-minute PERC in their in-ground. So this is an in-ground system, not a raised system. And again, so that worked out. Plans have been submitted to the Monroe County Health Department, the Monroe County DOT. And obviously the Monroe County Planning Department. We have received comments from several agencies. One being the Monroe County DOT, we got those through the DRC. I had the ability to update the plans and resubmit back to Monroe County DOT because they regulate the driveway and its location and configuration. So the driveway, we're proposing a culvert that crosses the existing swale that runs into the roadside ditch. They wanted some minor tweaks to the plan, some notes added. We made those changes for them and submitted updated plans for them, and they're ready to sign. We did receive comments from the town engineer. I can go through those in detail if you like. And Monroe County comments. So the plan is fairly simplistic in nature. It's a single family house. I think there's been several houses recently constructed on Woodford Road. So I don't see it being too much of a challenge. One of the things that we've done regarding the wetland is we want to protect that buffer. Right now, it's an ag field that's been used for ag uses. That's obviously going to change. But we want to protect that buffer. We're proposing an orange construction fence to be installed during construction because we don't want anyone to migrate into that wetland buffer. One of the rules that we do in land planning is when you have wetland, you want to avoid it at all costs, or you have to go get a permit or anything like that. So we're not proposing to get a permit from the DEC for this action because we're about 90 feet away from the buffer. That's a quick overview of the project itself. I could probably pull the town engineer comments out if you'd like to go through those.
Yeah, you might as well, because we have to go over those anyway. And I know you have some updates that I think most of us didn't see until this evening.
Okay, yeah, I received the comments last week from MRB. So I took the opportunity to update the plans and send them digitally back to the town with my responses.
That was pretty quick turnaround on your part.
Well, you try to, you want to be thorough, want to come here prepared. So let me go through these one by one. This is the MRB letter dated October 11th. The first comment, section of comments is regarding the seeker form. As this board is aware, the seeker form is a short environmental assessment form that is managed by the DEC. We actually log on to the state website. So a lot of things that are filled are not filled by us. So if you see something checked off, it's not something that I can do every time. It's a self-filling form. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. So he agrees this is a type 2 action and it's a short EAF is required. Number 2, the short EAF should state what this project is.
Let me make one addition.
Sure.
The engineer stated actually incorrectly. I think he borrowed a boilerplate statement from some other document. It says the board should complete a short EAF part 2 and 3. We don't have to do that for a type 2. So there's no further action required, actually.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, sometimes go either way with that. So that's great. So he wanted us to list the project action. So we added site plan to that action. So that's what we're doing. The environmental assessment number 3, that this is an area that's archaeological sensitive site and shows that there are potential bald eagles and archaeological sites present. So we run against this a lot. Bald eagles, I think I sent comments back to the board. It's a success story for our country and locally in the area that the bald eagles are here. We get these comments.
Do you know where the nest is?
No, I have no idea.
Yeah, see that for everybody in the audience, this is a so-called catch-22. Because you get these documents that say there's bald eagles in the area. And if you asked the DEC or whoever's responsible, well, where are they? They say, oh, we can't tell you because you'd go and disturb them. So
Right.
We have to know that they're in the area, but we can't know where exactly they
Yeah,
are.
so I would assume being
Yeah.
outdoor person I am, they're gonna be in the woodland area in the large, probably 5 acres of woods there, probably not along the right of way with the 1 or 2 trees needed to be removed for the driveway. So I think that's kind of where we are on that. But in that same vein, the archaeological issue was still tagged by the DEC. So we went ahead and submitted our plans to the CRIS system, which does the review to see if there's any archaeological sensitive areas in that. So we've submitted that plan to them. We have an action number and code on that. I don't foresee anything due to the development in the area previously. The archaeological, when they ding you for archaeological, it's just like the bald eagle. It's a large area. It's like a mile diameter. So anything within a mile gets flagged. Question 4, regarding question number 10, the project will not connect to existing public or private water supplies. He asked if the well is existing. So no, it's proposed. Number 5, question 17. Describe how stormwater will be conveyed to the site. Well, we don't have any public stormwater systems here. We're not proposing any stormwater systems other than the driveway culvert. But the ground and the existing generally slopes gradually from east to west to the roadside ditch along Woodruff Road, and we intend to maintain those drainage patterns. Question 6.
So it slopes to the road from the house area, but it slopes to the east further back towards the wetland.
Correct. Yep. Good catch. Number 6. Threatened and endangered species, back to that DEC. Yes, we're very aware of the DEC limits. And number 7. Contiguous area to an archaeological site. Again, all this, the same stuff that we got flagged for and we've addressed. Try to identify with the DEC. That's question number 7.
Or SHPO is, yeah,
To the,
SHPO.
yes, we submitted the SHPO. I give you the case number.
Yeah, we've got the document here that you sent.
General notes number 7, the project contains a 100-foot buffer boundary of the New York State designated wetland, and DEC Article 24 permit will be required. I disagree with that because we are avoiding the wetland. We are not doing anything with the wetland and or buffer. So we do not require a permit. Number 9, the contour should be shown on adjacent properties so the overall drainage patterns can be evaluated. I understand this point. We didn't shoot the whole 8.5 acres of area. We're not disturbing that whole lot. The drainage patterns on our plan and the topographic survey that we completed indicate the drainage patterns of the area of construction. I hope the board will agree that the limits are fine and that we can go along with our site plan approval.
So just so you're aware, what typically will happen is we're not going to get in the middle of your negotiation with our town engineer. So we'll probably, based on past history, just should we reach an approval resolution, we'll probably say that we have to satisfy the letter of town engineer. And that just means you two talk it out and
Oh,
talk
yeah,
agreements.
I don't see any showstoppers with that if we have to do
This
that.
this is the 50 feet on adjacent properties we're talking about. Showing
Yeah,
the contour line.
Yeah, so we have contour lines over into the power lines, which are further to the north,
Right,
but as it goes closer to the Zora property,
it's not there.
we haven't gone that far,
Okay.
and I don't think we're gonna impact that as well. Number 11 or number 10, about roof leaders to be directed to the dry well and the plans or the splash blocks. So we have, it's hard to see on that plan. We are going roof leaders to splash blocks that'll be directly going towards the roadside ditch. As I
Okay, so
say,
you're going with splash blocks.
yes,
Yeah, again, I think this is incorrectly written. It says roof drainage will be directed to a dry well or discharge splash block.
yeah, and I think that's from the town general notes
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that he picked up on.
Yeah.
All utilities proposed connection to the home will be shown on plans, and again, the only public utility we have is electric. So.
Is that on the plan though?
Yes, it is. We showed it routing from the pole that's almost directly across the street from the driveway.
All across the street.
Yeah.
So that means you got to drill under the street? Is that correct? Or
The county will make that, that's gonna be an RG&E call, which they usually do, is they'll drop a pole on the right of way and then go underground from that. But we don't have any skin in the game how they do that. The engineer wants us to indicate the number of bedrooms and bathrooms on the plan. Well, we never really go with bathrooms, but it's a 3-bedroom home that was on that plan originally and still is today. The leach field is designed for a 3-bedroom as well. Will the driveway include a culvert? Question mark. We showed a culvert on the driveway before, and that is approved by Monroe County DOT, as I said at the onset of the meeting. We don't see any issues with that.
you say it is approved or will be?
Yeah, they're
Is approved.
based on that supplemental packet I gave you, they had a couple
Okay.
more comments and they're ready to sign the plan with their permit fees and such.
For what is that?
So we satisfied all their comments, and then in order to get a permit, we have to pay them their fees and stuff, but we gotta make sure we address all
A permit for,
Monroe County DOT.
The driveway,
okay.
Yeah.
essentially the driveway.
Yeah. And then number 14, erosion control. It's very hard to see on our plan with a tight scale, but we do have erosion control along the right of way. That's the area that's really affected by any stormwater created from the project itself. We're not proposing drainage towards the wetland to the east. That silt fence is on there, and we noted that. We made it a little clearer on the plans. Kind of proud of the plan myself, because the gentleman that drew this was an intern this year. His second year as an intern. He did a great job, best he could, and I wish he was here tonight to present it to you, so I could stay home. But so I like what he did, and I'm proud of him, and I'm sure he is looking forward to the approval of this project. So that's the extent of the town engineer comments. And Mr. Chairman, as you mentioned, I don't see much of an arm wrestle with MRB to get these addressed and get on the same page.
Well, you did issue a letter of October 18 with had essentially all of the updates that you just mentioned.
Yes. I just provided 3 plans. I didn't provide too many more. I think I gave you 5 plans. But if you guys picked up on anything on the plan that's omitted or anything you'd like to
well,
change.
This gentleman is our deputy chairman, and he did have a couple of things that he noticed. Yeah, I can find his letter.
Here,
Yeah.
it's his statements, and here's the attached drawings.
So if you look at the top of your map, the north. You want to go ahead and read that?
Yeah, so he says, I have a couple of comments for the site plan review. Number 1, Niagara Mohawk National Grid property to the north appears to have the wrong property tax ID number. Monroe County GIS property map shows 225.02-1-11 /RH. See the attached screenshot.
So that's checking your drawing in some detail.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it extends a great way. I know it goes over 390 and these parcels are different. I believe it's the same tax parcel we filed the sort of subdivision with, but I have no problem making those corrections. And doing that.
It could easily be that we didn't pick that up.
Yeah,
And that's so
And
we would word that as you need to essentially verify what it is and correct it.
no problem.
I can't say here which is wrong, which is right, otherwise suspect this guy's right.
I think he's right.
his second point was that property on the west side of Woodruff, shown as Amy Schubach property, is actually part of Niagara Mohawk National Grid property. See attached screenshots, and he
Yeah.
shows them. They need to be
That's
switched.
that's my fault, because that's their mother-in-law's house. And she's a little further to the north. I kind of wanted to show she's in the area, so we'll make sure that right away is.
You're welcome to
100 feet.
show it, but you got to move it up.
I gotta move it up, so I'll take care of that. We'll make sure that that's in the right location.
Okay, and the third point was details / notes for septic show 1250 or 1500 gallons for 3 or 4 bedrooms respectively. The site plan shows a 3-bedroom and 1250 gallon tank. I don't know if the detail should be revised to match the site plan. So I guess he's just pointing out the fact that
So for a
It seems-
3-bedroom, use
well,
1250, you go up to a 5 or bedroom.
It seems like the detail is just kind of boilerplate saying, use this for this and this for this.
Yeah.
So I would think that's okay. You're showing everything correct on the drawing. I don't see a problem with that.
okay.
At least that's my view.
Yeah, I mean, the health department is, we're reading their comments on the plan itself. I don't see that. They'll have some minor tweaks as well, usually regarding notes or detail.
And I also have a comment regarding the grading of the septic tank.
The rating of it,
Yeah, so
so this would be a concrete tank rated,
Well,
traffic rated.
it says in the documentation, positive drainage to be provided. And what's shown is not positive drainage. This is positive drainage. You know, the
You referring
idea
to the
of,
tank or
excuse me, well,
you said the tank? I'm trying to-
the drainage runs over the tank.
Yes,
It's not positive, which would be away from the tank.
okay, the tank's underground.
The
You
tank
worry
is
about the
underground.
tank or the leach field?
I'm sorry,
It says
the
the
leach
leach
field. The leach field
Yes,
is underground, but the flow, the groundwater flow is not away from it, it's over it.
yeah, yes, you're correct.
Well, positive drainage would dictate that it be away from.
So,
Yeah,
I
so-
mean, it's, so
I mean,
it's.
Here's
unique with
just,
an
this is
in-ground
just a sketch to give you an idea. I mean, that's not anything technically correct, but that was just quick.
Yeah, well, you're indicating a tremendous amount of fill with the way you've got it graded there. So you took your last contour. So I guess I can understand your point, and we don't want to promote drainage towards a leach field or a septic tank. I think that the health department over the review will do that. You know, if you look at, that almost looks like a raised system. This is in ground where we really don't change the contour of the land. We're not actually allowed to in an in-ground
Right.
system. You can only put the lines in about 18 inches deep and you follow the contour of the land.
Right.
So,
No, I was just following, it does say positive drainage, and positive drainage is drainage away from and not over. So that was my.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that means, frankly. So you do have slope toward the road in that area, right? So anything would continue to travel across.
right.
Uh,
No, your point's well taken. I think that, I think in this situation, you never want to put water towards a leach field. You don't want to put a roof leader towards a leach field. You don't want to drain your driveway towards a leach field. And we're not doing that in this case, but it is following the natural grade. But I guess too, we'll see if the health department picks up on any tweaks for the grade, if they have any comments.
Yeah, there may be ways less dramatic than this. To
Yeah.
create that flow. This
Yeah.
is just going around the outside of it.
Right.
Here's,
Well,
this
that's
is over next to it.
really about the only thing he could do is put a swale kind of south of the house, if that's even justified. I'm not sure. But it's not gonna flow through the house, not onto the leach field.
Yeah, you start creating swales, unmowable situation,
Yeah.
water lays in there. I think, we got, what do we have, 5 foot of pitch to the roadside ditch for this.
I'm not-
I think it's gonna.
I'm not sure what to do with that, frankly.
And the other thing you mentioned was the roof drain.
Correct.
What,
It's very hard to see. If you look at the southwest corner, you'll see it says there's a faint line there, and we actually, I put an arrow to it that says proposed roof leader,
the south,
splash blocks typical.
southwest, that's
So we
this
have
corner?
that.
I don't see it.
I don't see, maybe in the. oh,
It's
that's
on the
the new one.
updated plan. Mind if I go over and-
Yeah, no, I know what it means. This should be an updated thing, but.
Proposed roof leader
Oh, I
splash
see.
blocks to this arrow, to that line,
Oh,
and
okay.
typical, and there's another line there.
So that would just come out at daylight, is that
Correct.
all it says?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it would also be discharging over the septic field, the leach field.
I don't believe it does. I
No.
think it ends beyond the leach field. So we'll make sure that does. I'll take a closer look at that. I understand your concern, and I don't want to have a system fail, so.
Okay, anybody have anything else?
Well, I had a couple of other things. So on looking through the environmental addendum. I have, it says page 3 for me. Town of Earth Planning Board Environmental Addendum. The second question says water course corridor. And I was just questioning whether or not there is a water course. Do you see
This
which?
is on what page for the secret? Oh, your
That's the-
checklist?
That's the Town of Earth Planning Board Environmental Addendum.
I don't know if I have that document with me. Give me a
It
moment.
was in your application packet.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good question because.
Because I
Isn't that
I
what
couldn't
this-
tell by looking at the map, but I thought there was.
isn't that what this is?
Right. kind
General,
of. Did you find it? I could give you this one.
sure.
Well, there's
What page you looking
the
at?
drainage easement coming out of the pond at the bottom of the wetland.
Yes,
This particular thing says page 3, so I'm not quite sure.
yeah, I think what, okay, I see the water course corridor, yeah. So I think this. The town's form saying, and I think we handled this at the subdivision phase with Mr. Zora, are there any drainage patterns that are on site that have to require an easement? I think you guys require a 50-foot easement, 25 feet on each side, I don't remember. But there's really no drainage courses that I can recall that require the easement that already don't have an easement on this.
I think that's correct. The only concern is that it ought to be checked. So we ought to
Yeah, well, it
just check
says
it.
environmentally sensitive features, but if there's no water course corridor, then simply use it.
Yeah,
Okay. Other things I had on the Pure environmental assessment form. Page 1, brief description of proposed action. I think leach is LEACH.
It's amazing how often you see that.
My update.
Let's hope it's not.
On page 2 of 3, it says how does the proposed action meet or exceed the state energy code require, does it? And you have checked, yes, that it meets or exceeds. And then it says if the proposed action will exceed requiring, describe design features and technologies. So
So this is one of those little check boxes that we have a hard time with. We're not architects, so we're not designing a lead building, we're just doing a site plan. But our way of methodology, why we check that box is because when they submit their building permit, they're gonna have their house plan is gonna be reviewed by town staff. They're gonna get a building permit that's gonna meet the requirement. A site plan, there's really no energy, whatever, moving dirt.
okay, so basically we're saying that it essentially will at least meet.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so that's what will meet.
It's hard for us.
Okay, under 12, question 12. It says, is the project site or any portion located or adjacent? Okay, that was the issue we discussed before. We can't know where, just like we can't know where the Eagles are.
Right.
Okay. And next page, I had the same question about the Eagles, but that's answered.
Well, more importantly, on the archaeological site, so you have sent a letter to the SHPO office asking them to essentially give you a ruling,
Correct.
right?
Yeah, it's
So
called a
that-
consultation, so we have a code number, I assume, and then in the next few weeks, I'll get some kind of result and I'll pass that on to town staff. And if we're fortunate enough for approval, obviously plans have to be routed through Monroe County DOT, Monroe County Health Department, and the town engineer's office, so.
Right.
Any approval, if we're fortunate enough to get tonight, I think by the time you get plans ready for signatures, we'll have an answer.
Okay, and the other thing I had, you've addressed it already. It's basically the 5-foot contours extending 50 feet onto adjacent property. Is that something we agree on?
Well, that's in our rules, so. The way I propose to handle that, given the argument that it's not really useful is it's on the town engineer's letter report,
Oh.
one of the requirements, and we will simply say that the applicant has to meet all the conditions of the town engineer, and then they can hash it out.
Okay,
The town engineer has to sign off, right? So that'll be covered.
okay,
And it's not something that I don't think it's a big struggle. We were at, we can go out there and we just don't have any, there's not drainage going towards it. There's not a driveway going towards it. It's. I think I'll talk to Joe with it and Joe will make it, find an easy resolution for that.
I think that's all I have. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Any other questions? Mac, any other questions? All right, I have no other questions. I will go through and read some more documentation that we got, but you're welcome to stand there or sit down, whatever your pleasure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we've gone over the MRB group letter, and there's, the applicant's responses to that, so we don't need to go further on that. Okay, so this was already mentioned, and this was provided by the applicant. It says, initial submission received, New York State Historical Preservation Office, SHPO, has received the following initial submission, so that's getting at the archaeological issue. That'll be one of the conditions, should we get that far, and that we get some resolution from SHPO. I'll go over in more detail. Department of Planning and Development, recognizing the applicant has already covered a lot of these items. So this is the so-called section 239M zoning authority, review authority and response from Monroe County Department of Planning and Development. So their comments are, applicants are encouraged to contact other county departments and non-county agencies to ensure all permitting requirements for this project have been satisfied. According to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and the United States Geological Survey National Hydrography data set, it appears a portion of a stream is located on the subject property, and it goes through a discussion of riparian zones, which should be protected, and I think you've done that around the wetlands. It talks about protecting the stream corridor, mitigating potential flood impacts. Minimizing concrete for paving for driveways and walkways, excluding vehicles, livestock, excessive pedestrian traffic, reduce, eliminate buffer area exposed to fertilizer, herbicides, pesticides, animal waste, household and automotive chemicals, trash debris, and piles of leaf litter, maintain septic systems. Okay, so it goes on about the Ag and Markets Law, Article 25AA of the New York State Agricultural Markets Law, titled Agricultural Districts, provides counties with an opportunity to create ag districts for the purpose of protecting and promoting the agriculture industry. This project occurs in Monroe County, the Eastern Agricultural District. According to our review of recent area photographs and agricultural district maps, this project occurs on or within 500 feet of agricultural production. And it says, therefore, an ag data statement has been submitted for this project as required in section 283A of Town Law and Article 25AA of the New York State Agriculture Markets Law. Now, I know you did that. You mentioned Zora's farm, I guess, as the adjacent agricultural property. Development of this property should be designated so that it does not alter existing drainage facilities used by adjacent parcels. If the land is being farmed, the applicant is encouraged to contact the adjacent farmer and the Monroe County Farmland and Ag Protection Board to discuss the proposed development. Well, I think we know that there's no development going on that will affect the neighbors. According to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation freshwater wetland map, this site may contain a portion of wetland RU6 or its adjacent area. The official wetland boundary must be determined by the New York State DEC due to the fact that the freshwater wetland map indicates the approximate location of the freshwater wetland boundary. The applicant may need to obtain an Article 24 permit from the New York State DEC. And I think you said you feel you don't need to do that, right? Because you're not disturbing it. I think that was mentioned in the town engineer's report as well. So that'll get covered. According to the National Wetland Inventory, maps prepared by the United States Department of Interior, this site appears to contain a portion of federal wetland that is classified as PEM 1C, PF 01E, PEM 1E, PUBFH. Although a buffer area is not required, it is beneficial to the wetland if a natural buffer of 100 feet is left around it. So presumably, if the state and feds can agree on where the wetland is, that 100-foot buffer would apply to both. Monroe County Department of Health, in the same document. The proposed project is a subdivision of land that does not require realty subdivision approval by the Monroe County Department of Health. However, if the plan is to be filed in the Monroe County Clerk's Office, Health Department sign off will be required, and indeed our approval, if any, will state that. Existing and proposed utilities will need to be shown on the plans to ensure all lots have their own access to sanitary facilities and drinking water, and you've done that. The proposed project utilizes a private wastewater treatment system and will require approval by the Monroe County Department of Health. Indeed, that will be a requirement of sign-offs. Moving on to the Monroe County Department of Transportation. This is the longest discussion about the driveway that I think I've ever seen. The Monroe County Geodetic Survey Monumentation Network provides the framework for all positioning activities in Monroe County. In order to preserve geodetic survey monuments, the location of monuments and the vicinity of the project should be evaluated. I trust there's no monuments on this property. Is that fair? Okay. Regarding site distance, since there is no posted speed limit, 55 miles per hour would normally be assumed. However, MCDOT has 85th percentile data, NB 56 miles per hour, SB 60 miles per hour, which should be used at the design speed. Now, you did update, I think, and showed 55. Is that right?
Yep, added the design speed to the plan.
Okay. So that is a straight stretch, isn't it there? Almost all of it. So even if it was 60, I can't imagine it's a problem.
Right.
Standard county drainage note is required, and a quotation marks, highway drainage along the county highway must be maintained. The applicant will be responsible for all required grading in the county right of way. The owner will place a culvert and or storm sewer of a type and size approved by the Monroe County Director of Transportation. And I believe you've resolved all that as well on your plans. And the county DOT will be another signee of the plan, so they can verify all of that. The standard highway county permit note is required after MCDOT approves this project. A 136 highway permit and a 239F permit will be required. Inspection of all construction in the right of way will be a condition of these permits. A standard county materials note is required. All materials installed in the county right of way shall be in accordance with MCDOT standards and details in effect when installed. Add note, all utilities must be bored across the county highway if applicable. Add note, the owner shall remove and maintain all tree shrubs to the right of way or a point 15 feet from the edge of travel lane, whichever is greater, along the property frontage in order to maximize sight distance from the proposed driveway. All group MCDOT notes together under the heading MCDOT notes. So does the drawing have those notes? It does. Okay.
Second page.
Okay, so that's in the detail on the second page. MCDOT's trench and pavement restoration for road cut detail is included on sheet 2, but a road cut is not shown on the plan. Please clarify and remove if it does not apply. Show MCDOT figures driveway taper layout and plan approval stamp on sheet 2 on the plans. Electronic versions are available on the MCDOT's website. A fee of $75 is due to continue our review approval of this project, and I think you've gone that far. Make checks payable to Director of Finance, County of Monroe. Submit one full-size copy, 22 by 34 hard copy of right plans to MCDOT. So again, I don't recall seeing that level of detail previously, so maybe that's their new standard. Then there's a couple others that really have not commented, but they were also sent to the Monroe County Department of Environmental Services, Division of Pure Waters, and the New York State DOT, which is not involved because it's not a state highway. Okay, here's your letter saying to Monroe County DOT attached, please find one updated copy of the site plan. Has been advised peer review and include a $75 check for the review and approval. That'd be for the driveway. Moving on, Rush Fire District, Board of Fire Commissioners. October 20, 2023 letter regarding application 2023-11P, Lot 2 of Zora subdivision, Woodruff Road, purpose build of a single-family dwelling with leach fields, spelled with 2 E's. After a review of the above application, the Board of Fire Commissioners has no issues or concerns as long as the driveway is accessible to emergency vehicles. And I believe the driveway is 14 feet wide, so that's pretty wide for a residential driveway. A straight shot, I don't think anybody have a problem with that. This is from the Town of Rush Conservation Board, Resolution 3-2023. Application for 2023-11P Zora on motion of Deputy Chairwoman Lederman, second by Chairman Watson. The following resolution was adopted for yeses and no nays, 1 absent. Resolve after review of application 2023-11P Lot 2 of Zora subdivision tax account number 226.01-01-1.2, Michael and Morgan Brown, Woodruff Road. It was determined the following questions or comments follow. The direction of stormwater runoff. So I think we covered that. The issue when we get to think about if we want to add something to the resolution about runoff kind of over the leach field. But I think the direction is pretty well indicated just by the topographical portions of the map. And then at number 2 is mature trees on hedgerow are not shown. So to be honest, I'm not sure what hedgerow they're talking about.
Mr. Chairman, I think they're talking about the roadside.
So it's probably,
Yeah, we
okay,
should-
mature trees along
tree
the-
line, but we couldn't get the individual trees.
okay. So that is shown on. Okay, so that's your 2 squiggly lines going down along the Woodruff Road, right?
Correct.
That's the
And
hedgerow.
It's also shown along that lane.
Okay, and so the DOT made a comment about removing sufficient vegetation there. You have that planned out, so you have the ability to see.
We added a note. We really didn't show any action step. We added a note for the plan about turning it within right away. We had,
Is it
On the
obvious?
second page,
no, on the first page, the updated plan, Monroe County notes, number 6. On the first page, bottom left.
okay. So I'm not so concerned about showing the trees as I am removing what's necessary for the site distance.
And so typically do, they're gonna, when they do the driveway curb cut, they do a certain thing.
Okay.
Are the mature trees, are there a certain number of them that are obvious or?
There are some mature oaks that are there, which we try to avoid with our driveway.
Right.
The rest are kind of sprawled.
Would it make sense to show them if they're just a few or?
Hard to predict, I guess report chooses that, you could go out there and show them.
Well, just, our conservation board has identified it.
Yeah. That way I look at it, we're doing a 14-foot cut through that, all that frontage we have, and minimal impact to the frontage.
Right, right. And the rest will be left.
Correct. Yeah, they want to buffer themselves from the road.
Okay. One of the first things we went over was Deputy Chairman Ask's comment. Okay, anybody have any other questions? Anything I missed covering that you know of? Anybody in the audience have any comments? Is there anybody on Zoom? Just me? I have no comments. Gene, anything?
No.
Okay. No one else?
Well, I would like to know that. I would be uncomfortable approving something that said positive drainage in the septic area, given what is shown on here, because I don't believe, in my estimation, that's not positive drainage. However, if our engineers or somebody else says it's
Yeah,
okay.
so. What I would propose is, I lost it now. Make a,
Yeah, but I would still then want to change the language. This is positive drainage, if we're gonna say positive drainage,
That's town stuff, though, right?
that's the town stuff, right? So either we change our designation that it be positive drainage, or we do something else, because
Yeah.
to me, that's not
Or
positive
then
drainage.
what comes out, and so, I agree.
Mm. And like I said, there might be other ways of addressing it. That causes more.
Well, I agree with you that positive drainage should be maintained from leach fields. We don't want to bring water to them. But I think that we gotta let the agency that is in charge of leach fields make those kind of rulings. The health department is yet to comment on the plan. I think their comments will be forthcoming. I don't think they're gonna be very major, and we'll address them. They're the ones that are gonna sign off on the
Yeah,
leach
no, I
field.
understand that,
Yeah,
but as a
okay.
professional engineer myself.
Yeah.
It would be difficult for me to sign off on something that said positive drainage if it was not something.
Right, well, there's a lot of notes. The general notes are,
Right,
we gotta make sure we have the X number of notes on the plan. They're not always applicable to every plan.
right,
With an in-ground leach field where we can't bury those lines any more than 18 inches in the ground, so
Right.
you kind of maintain the slope as it exists today, so that's.
there's some other, variations that are fooling around here, something less severe than that.
Yeah, I'll take another look at it. No, I definitely want to work with you.
well, we can put something in as a condition, and I would say the applicant to provide agreement of the town engineer and the Monroe County Department of Public Health on suitability of leach field drainage and roof leader at the southwest corner of the house. No, I don't know that you can do more than that. The guy who sat in my seat about two generations ago.
Felson?
Felson,
Yep.
he worked for the Department of Public
Oh, yeah.
Health, so he would know the answer to these
Yep.
questions.
No, it's,
I certainly don't.
yeah, I always welcomed coming here to
Yeah.
present for Mr. Felson.
I will say that at my house, the leach field kind of is just on a very gentle slope, and there's no attempt to stop anything flowing from above it, not going over it.
Right.
But there is an attempt to stop stuff from flowing elsewhere onto it with the soil.
I think that's actually, you can't stop the rains falling from the sky, but you can contribute to what's going towards it, and I think.
So I think with a condition like that, we'll probably cover your concern.
When
So you-
John Felson was chair, I don't know how many of these contour lines we changed at my insistence, so. I guess-
I'll look at it again. I'd rather make a better system of it, and if your comments, make me tweak it at all, I think that's a better thing for the applicant, so I'll definitely take a look at it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, again, anybody else? If not, then I will move that the public hearing be closed. Do I have a second?
A second.
All right. Roll call, please, Sharon.
Member Corbin,
Aye.
member Morelli,
Hi,
member
Boys.
Moise,
Aye.
and Chairman Scott.
Aye. Okay, so if we had more applications, we would do other applications, public hearings right now. This is our only one, so we can move right into deliberation. That works out real good for you folks who are here. You don't have to wait for another application. So let me, I think you've got an indication of the conditions. So if you've been writing down any others as we went through this, and I don't have them, let me know. So I'm not reading the resolution now, I'm just asking the question. So obviously, one of the conditions will be meeting all the requirements of the town engineer. I think many of them are already met. But that provides a safeguard for anything that is not. All requirements of the Monroe County Development Review Committee, DRC, including the DOT for driveway access. Yeah, they'll have to obviously obtain the approval of the Department of Health and the Department of Transportation, town engineer, and the Rush Planning Board. By the way, by our policies, I'm the last one to sign. So you're gonna have to go around and get all the other signatures and get me last. Building permits, applicable town inspection requirements, meet all necessary local, state, and federal permits. So here's one that's more meaty from what's still waiting. The applicant shall obtain a no effect letter or equivalent from the New York State Historical Preservation Office, SHPO, regarding item 12B on a submitted short environmental assessment form as an area designated as sensitive for archaeological sites. I don't have anything down for the bald eagle because I don't think there's anything else you can do there. The applicant shall verify and correct as appropriate the adjoiner lot descriptions to the north of the property on both sides of Woodruff Road to Niagara Mohawk, tax ID number 225-02-1-11 point /RH. So I said verify and correct as appropriate. Okay. And then applicant shall provide agreement of the town engineer and the Monroe County Department of Public Health on suitability of leach field drainage and roof leader at the southwest corner of the house. Does that cover that?
I like it.
okay.
Anything I missed? Are we agreed that it's worthy of approval?
Yeah.
Okay. I make the following resolution for site plan approval. Whereas the planning board of the town of Rush has examined application 2023-11P submitted by Michael and Morgan Brown, the applicant, for tax parcel 226-01.01-01-1.2 on Woodruff Road, Rush, New York, 14543, the property, requesting site plan approval for a single-family dwelling on the property. And whereas the planning board has examined the application, maps, and other materials filed with this application, including the environmental assessment form, and all having reviewed all current plans and reports, including comments and reports from town professional staff, the public, and other interested and involved agencies associated with the application, including Monroe County Planning and Development. And whereas a public hearing on the application was held on October 24, 2023, and notice was posted as required by law. And whereas all persons at the hearing desiring to speak on the matter were heard, all correspondence on the matter was read, and all comments and statements that were received during the public hearing and or at other duly held meetings of the planning board were considered by the planning board. And Whereas the property has a townwide drainage easement for the stream at the southeast corner acquired at the time the property was subdivided. And now therefore be it resolved, the planning board determines that this is a type 2 action exempt from seeker review pursuant to section 617-5 C11 of Title 6 of New York Code of Rules and Regulations concerning the construction of a single-family residence, including provision of necessary utility connections. And it is further resolved that upon consideration by the planning board of the factors set forth under section 120-69B3 of the town zoning law, including the location and arrangement of buildings on the property, adequacy, type and arrangement of trees, shrubs, and other landscaping constituting a buffer between this and adjoining lands, adequacy of separate disposal of stormwater and sanitary waste, and protection of adjacent properties, the planning board grants site plan approval. And it is therefore resolved that site plan approval is granted subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall meet all requirements of the town engineer as indicated in the town engineer's letter dated October 11, 2023. 2, the applicant shall meet all requirements of the Monroe County Development Review Committee parentheses DRC review response dated October 16, 2023, including Monroe County Department of Transportation parentheses MCDOT requirements for driveway access. The applicant shall obtain approval of Monroe County Department of Health and Monroe County Department of Transportation. 4, the applicant shall obtain approval signatures of the town engineer and the Rush Planning Board Chairman parentheses last. 5, no work is to commence until the applicant obtains a building permit from the town of Rush. 6, the applicant must meet any other applicable town building and inspection requirements. 7, the applicant shall obtain all other necessary local, state, and federal permits and approvals required for the project. 8, the applicant shall obtain a no effect letter or equivalent from the New York State Historical Preservation Office, parentheses SHPO, regarding item 12B on a submitted short environmental assessment form as an area designated as sensitive for archaeological sites. 9, the applicant shall verify and correct as appropriate the adjoiner lot descriptions to the north of the property on both sides of Woodruff Road to Niagara Mohawk tax ID number 225.01-1-11./RH. 10, applicant shall provide agreement of the town engineer and the MC Department of Public Health on suitability of leach field drainage and roof leader at the southwest corner of the house. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Member Corbin,
Aye.
member Morelli,
Aye.
member White.
Aye.
Chairman Strong.
Aye.
Oh, I just thought of something else. We didn't ask, is it Morgan? Morgan? Oh, my. Okay, we didn't ask how he felt the impact of living diagonally across from his mother-in-law. Is that an issue that is under our jurisdiction?
Some people like their mother-in-laws.
Okay, never mind.
Do you live in Rush now? At where? Okay, well, welcome to Rush. When you finally get built and moved in. Okay, so there's normal procedures now. Sharon I'll send, if you don't have it already, Sharon, I'll send you what I have for the resolution and you can verify it's what was said. And then you essentially send out a copy within a certain number of days. That's a requirement. And as we said, you'll be negotiating somewhat with our town engineer, but not too much.
Sharon, did you send that? I'll do it out to them. Probably not. That I sent out. I'll deal with that directly there.
I believe so.
I'll check.
Yeah. I believe so. I will double check.
But if not, I'll probably get an updated one anyway. The final comments and made, I'll take another look. We should go get.
That's good.
Thanks for your time and the approval.
Yep. You're welcome.
Take care.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on to on the agenda, old business. I think at the previous meeting, we talked about some changes made to the subdivision of site plan application and checklist. And John, I think you recommended we make the check boxes more visible. They were extremely small. In your packet, you should have the first 2 pages of that. And I believe Amber made these changes along with a little bit of my help. To find it. That's not, you can look at this one. Oh, was last.
Yes,
Okay, so the change is on the second page. Where there is larger check boxes for the top planning board application fees. So it clearly now says check off with parentheses, check mark in any boxes that apply, any box that apply. In check off with a check mark, in box any that apply. So those boxes are bigger now. I changed the wording at the top on the right. There's a number of single family dwelling lots. It used to say something else, which was, I couldn't even understand. So that says number of single family dwelling lots. That is the number that's used then to multiply by the $50 per lot, for example.
Yep.
Similarly, down 2/3 of the way down the page, there's a big check off for the parentheses, check in box by applicant or professional engineer / land survey agent. And those check boxes are also bigger.
Scott, on the recent one we received. It's. It was one lot. So it was 150 plus $50 for that one. lot,
Right, right.
It's $200 for a
Right.
single lot.
Right.
Okay,
That's the intent.
just want to make sure.
Yeah, and then people will say that's confusing. Why isn't it $200 for one lot and $50 for each additional lot? And you can argue either way, but this is what we settled on.
Yeah.
The subdivision process used to be really obscure.
Yeah, no, this is clear.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear this way. Okay,
Yes,
so we're all in agreement. We will implement that change.
and lose this. Parentheses there.
Have something else?
No less.
No less than 22 by 34.
Yeah, there's a parentheses.
Oh, yeah.
After that.
Yeah, we can get rid of that.
I just noticed it.
Well, in fact, your point's valid. You have a copy you're looking at over there?
Yes.
So we don't really need that little circle bullet there at all. That,
Bottom check off, second one under map size.
yeah, right,
Yes,
right under the lower checkoff. There's map size is consistent with requirements provided in specifications for subdivision. You see that? Parentheses, no more than 34 by 44 inches and or planning board site plan, minimum plan requirements. To be consistent, that ought to be a parentheses, no less than 22 by 34 inches. That's what I would
right,
do,
and put it right up there.
Right. not have it, you can gain a whole line there.
Okay.
Thank you. I noticed that long ago and then dismissed it again. Well, this is a long time getting here to getting this checked off. And hopefully in a way that will be used and prevent the kind of thing we saw a month ago. For a totally inadequate site plan coming in and accepted.
Since we're here and gonna make one little change, I'm just gonna suggest something else. Where it says check off in box, any that
And
apply.
it should be any box that apply,
In
any
box-
boxes that apply.
Any boxes that apply.
How about that?
But also, I'm just wondering if instead of having parentheses around that check, if we had brackets, it would look more like the box. Would that be preferable? Instead of, just having it.
Yeah, with the bars would look more like the box.
Yeah.
Instead of the parentheses.
The ideal thing would be to have the same size.
Or have a box.
box.
The ideal thing would be to have the same size little
Or a
square
little box.
with a check in it, but you probably can't put a box then to check both.
And that box should be boxes. Yeah, we've got that, but instead of the parentheses with a check mark, if we can somehow
Make a box.
then put a box with a check mark inside it.
That'd be good, or if not brackets,
If not,
or square brackets rather than.
So, and same way down below both
Right.
places.
Okay, I'll shut up.
She's gonna take care of it for you.
Well. Okay. Again, this is a huge improvement of where we were several years ago.
Absolutely.
And it took us that long to get there.
Just so you know, I'm still gonna look at it. Right,
Sharon has threatened.
well, there's. For one thing that maybe I will add to this is just a calendar to show application deadlines, when the planning board meets, when the county deadlines have to do it, so that people can see and know what they are. We'll start maybe in 2024.
Okay, which will help the applicants.
It will help them as well.
The problem is, of course, that always has to be updated without fail every year.
Every year.
Yeah.
So here's a question. We discussed, and I don't know if it's been resolved yet. Who takes these applications? I mean, because I know people like our town clerk has the ability to take money and you do not.
Correct.
Correct. So,
Plus Sharon is part-time and not here all the time.
right. So I'm just wondering whether on this form somewhere should be the initials or the name or something of the person that accepts it.
I ordered a new stamp that says original. It will be stamped when it's received, and I will sign.
Okay, but it doesn't say original Sharon.
But
I'm just
I will
thinking
copy
it-
paste that little thing that says.
Oh, okay, I'm just concerned if something is amiss and something's incorrect, we know who to yell at. No, not necessarily, not if you're not there. Right?
Well, hopefully it will be put in my mailbox.
Okay, I'm
And
just,
I'll get it on the date that I'm still working on, excuse me, I'm still working on balancing all of the responsibilities of this job, and they keep coming. I emptied water bottle and said, I think I should tell you that it's empty, and it's like, it's up to you to work. So though, you know what I mean, it keeps going.
but I think a spot for the person accepting it would be helpful to me. Is that not me?
The rectangle that's in
This box here.
Do you think
Right.
it should have something written in there?
Somebody's initials.
Accepted by or something?
Office use, something like that on here. What we
Yeah,
can talk about that.
That
Yeah, just the.
that has happened in the past, where I know it's been initialed by the clerk who accepted it, but I don't know that it's a requirement.
Right, and I don't think it's been done every. Right.
Well, how about down here where the applicant or agent has to sign it? Maybe it's signed by the clerk received complete application.
That'll work too.
Yeah, anywhere. I just think it'd be good to have,
Or there's a big space right here.
yeah. Accepted by.
Okay, so that in the past has been a stamp by the Rushtown clerk that says that the fees have been paid and the check number.
Right,
That's what that box.
Yeah, so that's, you're right, that's probably mostly for the fee collection.
right, but there's also this area down here.
It's not,
I'll leave it at that.
as I said, there'll probably be more.
More what?
revisions.
Undoubtedly.
Well, while it's here and, you know, it seems like get everything down that,
Well, I didn't have time. I wanted to, I will say, coming from the town of Avon, the town board approved, MRB group go in and revise all of their planning and zoning documents were a very hefty dollar amount. And I wanted to look at all of those and compare and see,
what might work.
so we don't have to spend money, but make it work for this board and for myself.
One other thing we've talked about in the past, and you notice this is subdivision and site plan,
Right,
right?
Right?
separate.
There's pros and cons to that. There are a number of similarities in what has to be provided with both, but I think that's unusual. I think a lot of towns have a site plan application and a subdivision application separate. And that also has advantage because I think
Yeah.
sometimes gets confused by applicants. But if you start doing that, then you can also argue maybe you ought to have a limited industrial and commercial site plan and a separate form for residential site plans. The same way with subdivisions. So you can continue to break that down because there are differences in requirements between residential and business applications. So this was clearly just an agglomeration of all of those, which has, like I say, advantages and disadvantages. Okay, enough on applications. Next, item B, an old business is code committee and limited industrial, commercial, and mixed-use hamlet code status of update proposals. So John and I are on the code committee. And for limited industrial, that was the first one we worked on. I sent you members an email, I think on October, oh, I'm sorry, I sent you an email, but that there would be a public hearing tomorrow, that's right, not next one, it is next Wednesday, it's tomorrow, October 25th. So that public hearing will be for the resolution to adopt that proposal made by the code committee. So that is moving along very, very quickly, since there is a vested interest. There is a Ferguson Electric, you probably heard of, is interested in building a regional center in the High-Tech Drive area, actually the corner of West Henrietta Road and West Henrietta Town Line Road. So there's a vested interest by a number of parties, including us and the town board, to get those updates in place, because it's not clear that that type of business would be allowed in limited industrial as it's written right now.
So if I could just clarify for a second.
Sure.
So there is a public hearing tomorrow. We'll see if any residents have any problems with that, you know, and if not, we still have to wait for that 239M letter back from Monroe County Planning.
Oh,
So
okay,
we may or may not be able to actually pass that tomorrow night, which we have to wait till we get that back.
okay.
So
I-
just so you know,
You have to wait to approve it?
yeah,
Okay.
So that you would expect that could happen, should it be agreed within a few weeks, I would think, right? And then it's approved by the town board, and then this still doesn't take effect until the state gets something of it, right?
yeah, technically, the Secretary of State has to send their approval back.
Okay. But
And we don't control any of that.
But it sounds like we're talking a month or two, which, considering that we just really took this up in earnest, maybe a month ago, and I made the presentation to the town board just a few weeks ago, yeah,
Beginning of October.
early, like October 5th or 3rd or something. So that's really moving on at a phenomenal clip. Okay, so there's still more hanging out there. The code committee has also been working on the commercial district code. Now, let me talk about that first. Let me just say that right now, the hamlet, this area we're in right now, is zoned commercial. It's really a poor fit of a commercial code, and I didn't get into that in just a second. But I'm talking about a commercial code that is not for the hamlet, but for a general situation like the big areas out along Western Ed Road, the big areas that are zone commercial. In fact, you'll see those in a minute if we get into the training. And in that, it's more like, a real business type area, and we borrow an awful lot of the requirements from the limited industrial district proposal that we came up with. In addition to that, it's recognized that this hamlet needs to be a mixed use. So that involves also commercial, but on a kind of a different scale than what you think of for a normal commercial district. Residential, you've got civic and government uses like this building, that type of thing. And you've got a situation where there's just an awful lot of setbacks and lot sizes, frontages, a whole bunch of things in the code of a normal district just could never be met by a lot of properties here. So, and parking. So that is a totally different animal. That is, we have come up with a mixed use hamlet zone, MUH, that allows flexibility to essentially permit most of what's here. It involves a lot of discretion by the planning board as we're proposing it. I'm not going to be talking about that today any further, but it's a totally different animal. And I will say that the code committee plans tomorrow morning to have a meeting in which we go over for the last time, hopefully, our commercial code proposal and our mixed use hamlet code proposal. If we get that finalized, which I think we will, we'll be ready to issue that to the town board and this group and other boards for their review. And I think the plan is I will be presenting both of those to the town board at a workshop on November 6th. So those also are moving along very, very nicely. I can't remember a time in history where we've had this kind of improvement of a substantial nature moving through the process as well as we are doing right now.
And the town board can choose to change the name if they want to mixed use district. But we chose not to because it would be abbreviated MUD, and we didn't like that, so.
A number of towns do that. I could have mentioned, Rush is not unique in having a so-called downtown that is just an amalgamation of various uses. So we are far from the only town with a mixed use district that's required. But yeah, we try to avoid the MUD designation. Although when we have floods, it probably applies.
That's right. We do have floods.
Okay, moving on to future meetings. I just wanted to mention again, we have 4 tabled applications hanging out there. 2023-5P is a Genagon at 7699 Western Ed Road. That's a special permit for a 2-family dwelling. You remember that Paul and I did visit that site, and I think it's a case where the applicant is using this facility for 2 families and doesn't have a big incentive to get back with the updates to his plans that we required. Similarly is 2023-4P J. Crew Landscaping, which is a site plan for a commercial business that is partly being used for farming. That's also hanging out there, and similarly, the property is being used, and not a big incentive to get back to us. That's not the case with the next 2. The 2023-8P we had last month, Alexander 45 Woodruff Road. That is still held up by the fact that the well on the property to the north is too close to the proposed leach field, partly because the well was not put where it was shown on the site plan for the property to the north. So that's being hashed out, including by the lawyers and the building inspector. I'm not sure where that's going, frankly, except that it's nothing we can improve at this point until that's resolved. And 2023-9P is a kind of sad situation of the house that burned on Fishel Road. That's also a site plan for a single family residence. I expect that one to come in on at the November meeting. Remember, we gave them agreement to, if they can get their updated site plan to us 2 weeks before the meeting, we will get it in, and our town engineer has agreed to turn it around that fast. So we were thinking they might get it to us for this month. They couldn't do it. I'm expecting to have it by the middle of November for the November 28th meeting. Okay. Anybody else have anything? What time is it? Only 8:30?
I just have a question about these applications that were
Yep.
waiting to come back. So if they have no incentive to ever come back, would we ever expect to see them back? Or do we not have an answer for that?
It is up to the code enforcement officer and the building inspector to take that kind of action. I had notified them particularly about the J. Crew landscaping a number of months ago, because that came up pretty early this year. And at that time, I said, you know, they don't have incentive to come back. But by the way, we've got a lot of applications right now, but I think we're past that. So I'll send a note again to Doug and John Limbeck.
You had brought up in the past that there might be like a window where you would deny an application, like a certain period of time, 2 years go by and they never come back. It's just something you had mentioned in the past.
Yeah, I'm not aware of anything in our code of that nature. There are requirements around once an application is received, you have to turn it around, I think within 62 days or something like that. But at this point, if you have mutual agreement, let's just say, I don't think the applicants can come back and say, well, this is approved by default because you haven't considered
Yeah.
it, because they have agreed to the tabling and haven't gotten what we're
So it
required.
really does just live in limbo.
Yeah, yeah. But that's fair. I think it's about time to say what's going on. Okay. I did plan on showing you some what I'm calling training on commercial and limited industrial zoning code. It's kind of why the code committee has come up with the proposals we came up with. And I think it's important you know that, because if things work out the way they should, we'll be getting more business as a planning board on commercial and limited industrial applications. So if you're willing, I'm assuming it'll be about an hour, if that's okay, I'll go through that. All right. It's still there. I'll share, yeah, I'll have to go in and get. Oops. Oh. Yeah.
Your call. Should be able to-
Oh, you've got, I have to go in and push on something myself, right?
Just the little green buttons at the bottom.
Yeah, well, I don't know what's going on here. I don't have that slide. I don't have Zoom in a form I can get to anything. There it is. No, exit minimize video. There we go. Okay, share screen. You've got your choice, Mac. You can look at that one back there if you can see far enough, or turn your whole chair. Don't hurt your neck.
Did you want to do any public comments prior to the training? Just
Don't, well, there's nobody on, right? You're welcome to stay if you want, but it's up to you.
No, I don't wanna, stay, I just wanted to, I'm gonna be showing up tomorrow for the.
So you flip the microphone and give your name and where you live.
Sure, yeah. My name is Rebecca Gwelly, and I'm with Sealand Contractors in Rush Meadows.
Oh, you're Rebecca.
I am, so, I'm very excited about the changes, and, I want to thank you, Chairman, for the committee and getting everything prepared, and, after 30 years of working on this, just like, finally something could happen here. But there is some things that I'm worried about in bringing them up tomorrow. I don't want to put a damper on anything not happening because we have, customer Ferguson and that. But at the same time, I have to protect, our already developed property, basically.
Well,
So-
that's the purpose of a public hearing.
Yeah,
That's why the
so-
process is required.
So I guess I'm just wondering if there's anything that you need before the meeting tomorrow.
No, it'll be a town board meeting.
Yeah,
So I'll be here just as a resident sitting in the audience.
Oh,
If
okay.
questions come up, maybe they can empower me to discuss it if they think that's appropriate. But
Yeah.
it won't be my meeting, it'll be theirs.
okay.
And Jean is our representative to that. And Amber, I'm sorry, yeah, I forgot about Amber.
We'll be there.
Well, thank you very much. I
Okay.
appreciate all your hard work, so.
It's a public hearing too,
It is public hearing.
public hearing, so you'll have an opportunity to
Yep,
speak.
you
as
will,
well.
you will be given, there may be limitations of 3 minutes or something. That's up to the town
Sure.
board, but yeah,
Okay.
you'll be given an opportunity.
All right, well, thank you
Okay,
very much.
okay.
Get rid of this thing. Okay, hopefully that won't interfere too much. So again, this is dealing with commercial and limited industrial code, and keep in mind, the limited industrial is first, commercial is on a different timeline. But there's enough similarities between them that I thought it was appropriate for this training to talk about both of those. I'm gonna write down when we started this, by the way. So if you look at this section of the town map, this is the upper part up here is the so-called high-tech area. High-tech Drive runs through that, but it borders Rush Henry Town Line Road and West Henrietta Road. There's a limited industrial area over here, probably a lot of people don't know about, but it's in the back off of one of these properties on 251. And then there's a portion down here between the commercial and a portion over here that is multiple lots. This is half developed, I'd say, the high-tech area. This one is not developed. Heck, I'll mention the proposal that came up there that couldn't be entertained at the time because of the code. This has Syncon down here, and there's a medical, Nuovo, something like that. There's a medical research facility back here. It's quite mysterious, but it's there. And there's actually one resident going in over here. He's been putting in crushed stone for years now, for about the last 5 years. That is Comet Flasher. So all of these, except for this one, are in use of a sort. And then the commercial, this is the 7566, if I have it right, where J. Crew is. He owns this whole thing. And then there's, no, I'm sorry, this is J. Crew down here. This is the big lot behind Diamond Limousine that's farmed right now. And again, I'm not talking about this commercial zone over here in the hamlet. That's a different animal. It's not included. It's a complicated issue of mixed commercial, residential, civic, and government. And that's the subject of a different type that doesn't belong in this presentation. So why this presentation? The planning board will be making important decisions about how future limited industrial and commercial site plan applications are affected by new code proposals if and when they are adopted. Member understanding of the purposes and intent of the new code will be important. Site plan reviews with the new codes may require more detailed involvement of the planning board than previously. And that is because two general things. One is site plan and special permit applications will be more frequent with more permitted uses allowed, and because they are required for changes in uses on any given site. Part of that's already true, but generally not enforced. Each application will be more complicated with higher expectations for appearance and aesthetics, including architecture and landscaping. Something we have long had authority for landscaping, rarely is it used. But we're proposing we have some authority on architecture, and I'll talk more about that. I don't think there's anything to be scared of. Parts of this presentation are an overview explanation of commercial and limited industrial district code issues that we have right now, including many pictures of problems and alternatives. I'll mention concepts in the current code, but will not show all specific code wording. And I'll mention general fixes proposed by the code committee that are included in the new code proposals, but not specific code wording, because you can read those yourself. One of our problems is requests to locate businesses in Rush have been turned away or required special consideration of code restrictions. For example, 1025 Rush Center to Town Line Road. We recently approved a landscape business in there, but we had two different dog training or kennel requests late in 2022. And I think it was actually an earlier landscaper who looked at it and was kind of turned away by some of the requirements. And then there's that Rush Scottsville Road near West Henrietta Road. That's the one off to the left of West Henrietta Road that I said is unusual. It actually was a mini storage facility that was interested in locating in that. And mini storages by current code are allowed and exist in commercial, but they're not really, you can't see how you could allow them in the current code in limited industrial. So that was turned away. But at the same time, businesses have moved into existing buildings without approval. In the lower left here is IPSI, what's it called? Integrated Power Systems International or something like that. But they essentially a generator business, although they're trying to move into solar and some other things. So sometime in 2020, they were in this facility at 1025 Rush Henrietta Road. That's the one we just approved this year for the landscaper. It ended up being a very poor fit for them. You can see how they've crammed a bunch of vehicles in there and a bunch of storages I'll talk about later. So they clearly outgrew that. You know, I'll come back and talk more about that, those problems. And they moved into this facility, which is just 2 doors further to the west on Henrietta Town Line Road. That's number 999. Beautiful facility. You can see how it's huge. The lot is 7 times bigger than their previous lot. The building is, I don't know, 20 times bigger. There's actually 2 buildings in their new facility. They've got room for everything outside. Lots of parking area back behind the building, not in front. But even that probably could not have been approved with the current limited industrial code. I'll talk more about that. And that's because business uses permitted in limited industrial districts are very limited to things like research and development oriented industries and high technology or light manufacturing operations and business and professional offices. And frankly, that was kind of a naive assumption that those kinds of business would be sufficient to fill in the limited industrial areas in the town. So demand for those uses has not filled long available lots. High Tech Drive really has not built out in the last 30 years at all. It's only 5% of the current code is only 5% of the land area is allowed for commercial uses. So that is extremely limited. I'll talk more about that, but essentially that 999 lot, that 7.5 acres would have been about 20% of the High Tech limited industrial area. So we couldn't allow a commercial business in there. Other restricted rules apply, especially no outside storage, which is a really big one. So what happens is we have apparent violations by some current businesses for overall uses and outside storage and more. Essentially, they just do it without approvals. We must sometimes ignore mandatory curb requirements in the code to be reasonable. I'll talk more about that, the so-called landscape mall part of the code that is in there and we want to get rid of while retaining the good necessary parts of it. So that was applied to limited industrial. Commercial districts are a bit different. Business uses permitted in commercial districts are not overly restricted. That's not our problem. That's not like limited industrial. Essentially, any retail and personal service business is permitted. But there's other restrictive rules, especially no outside storage. And unlike the current limited industrial code, there is no stated requirement that new uses of existing buildings require a new site plan. So once again, we have new businesses moving into existing buildings, whether it's completely different, they have different needs and different needs for parking and other things. There's no requirement that they come back to the planning board for approval, perhaps unless they make some building revisions. And we have the same mandatory curb requirements that I'll talk about more later, which are kind of silly. So what happens? 3 problems. Potentially viable businesses are turned away. We have frequent examples of businesses who move in but don't follow the rules, don't get approvals. And the current code is so restrictive that my belief is that it's very difficult to enforce. So when you have laws that are seemingly restrictive to a silly nature, it just makes it difficult to enforce those rules. And that means that when you do enforce other rules, it seems selective and unfair. So the bottom line is we have hardship for those businesses who follow the rules, and a rush appears to some observers as being anti-business, while historically struggling to enforce some burdensome rules. At the same time, Rush limited industrial and commercial codes lack some common requirements used in most nearby towns for appearance and safety, particularly around driveways. And those are, most towns require limited specific driveway access as opposed to paving bigger areas right up to the road. Most other towns require parking lot setbacks, and actually that is a requirement in Rush, but it's in that obscure and hard to find section called landscape malls. So we want some of those features, but we want it more easily findable in the limited industrial and commercial codes. A lot of other towns require loading docks and garage doors are not allowed on the front of buildings in most cases, with exceptions like service stations, for example. Most towns require waste containers and dumpster locations kind of behind the building, at least behind the front of the building. Actually, our commercial code does say waste containers are supposed to be screened or can be required to be screened. Limited industrial has no such requirement. And then there's the issue again of curbs and high traffic areas. And again, that actually is a requirement in Rush, but it's too universal, so enforcement is not applied and it's very difficult. And then there's most towns have landscaping and architectural requirements and we don't. And a lot of towns have building size requirements and we don't. So more on code limitations on uses. So this is the statement right out of the code for limited industrial. The purpose of a limited industrial code district is to permit where appropriate the construction of facilities for research and development oriented industries and high technology and or light manufacturing operations and business and professional uses. But that purpose fails to recognize the lack of real world demand for such businesses. And I said, High Tech Drive hasn't been built out 30 years. There was a request by Jack Moore to rezone part of his farmland to the west of West Henrietta Road. I think that was about 60 acres, if I'm not mistaken. But essentially, it was a trucking business, a distribution center that is allowed by our current limited industrial code. And he was hoping to get that rezoned, put essentially a trucking company in there. And there were no real plans for all of the other 6 or so lots that were proposed and probably would have not been built out either. So again, just so you understand the kind of restrictions, even in High Tech Drive. This lot up here, number 15, is the dentist office. That's about 4% of the acreage, but we can define that as a professional office, so that is not a part of 4% commercial. This landscaper we approved down here at 1025, next to just off of Rush Center Town Line Road. That's 1 acre, it's about 2%. There's a dance studio here in Sealand. Rebecca Gwelly, who was just here, is actually her family owns Sealand. So she controls this property, and I believe they control this property, which is this corner here where I'll mention later that Ferguson Electric wants to move. So that's why she's very interested in our code. There is a dance studio in number 85, and we could probably proportion that to 1%. But my point that I made earlier is that this generator sales business here in 999 is a 7.5 acre property, and it alone is 15.5% of that whole limited industrial district. So that, if we assume that is commercial, we could not approve that with the current code, as reasonable as that business is in that location. So it's interesting. This is a sign out in front on West End Road for the high-tech area. And it says available commercial development, but the fact is you can't get much commercial development in there. The new code proposal reduces the use restrictions in limited industrial. We have proposed clarifying and expanding categories of business uses that are already permitted, such as light manufacturing. We wanted to make sure that machine shops and wood-based businesses like cabinet fabrication and other things, woodworking shops were allowed, which arguably might not have previously. We greatly expanded support services. Those are essentially services for businesses in the limited industrial zone or any other business. And offices, we came up with a very big description of all the office types that are allowed, again, which is very common to what other towns do based on professional offices documented by the state. So again, you can read the allied code to see how those were expanded. But we did add some other things that were not there at all. And one is major new permitted use, sales, installation, and service businesses. There are, as I mentioned, several of these already in our LI districts and could be argued are non-conforming. IPSI is one of those. Syncon, I'm sorry, they essentially sell things and install things like truck bodies for municipal uses, whether they're vacuum, bodies on the back of a truck, dump truck, not dump truck so much as garbage trucks, those types of things. You see a lot of trucks sitting down there off of West End Road. Probably could be screened better, but we want that type of business at least to be allowed. And then there's Comet Flasher, which we approved maybe 5 years ago. It may be fit better in this category than it does limited industrial as it was previously defined. And then I mentioned Ferguson Electric proposal, southeast corner of West End Road and North Center Town Line Road, but that's the northeast corner up here where the star is. That's about 10.5 acres by itself. So that we view as commercial and could not be allowed with the current code. Certainly would be allowed with the proposed code. And by the way, we made his proposal months and months before this ever came up. The new code proposal reduces other limited industrial use restrictions. So we permitted other new permitted uses like food and beverage manufacture. I don't see any reason why we couldn't move a craft brewery in there, for example. We are not allowing, butchering and sauerkraut and vinegar and smelly things like that. And it states that right in the code, but food and beverage is one of those things, one of those areas that at least has growth potential. Graphic arts and light printing is typically allowed in most other towns, limited industrial areas. We added self-storage and mini storage with a special permit. Again, that gets back to the proposal to put one on that limited industrial off of 251 to the west of West End Road. And then interestingly enough, if you read the current code, there's no mention of vegetable and field, no mention of farming being allowed, in fact. So we are proposing at least vegetable and field farming be allowed without a permit or site plan required. That's probably the best and least intrusive way of maintaining or sustaining land before it's developed. And then we added controlled environment agriculture. This potentially is a big deal because these things are sprouting up all over the country, particularly on the East Coast. And they can be big. They can be 250,000 square feet. That's, you know, hydroponics and all kinds of things like that. You know, some people call it vertical agriculture. The way our laws are written now, you could argue that these are now allowed in residential areas, and a lot of towns where that has happened. I think once in Webster, where a huge greenhouse went in a residential area. So talk more about that later, but we'd rather see it in limited industrial than we would in a residential area. And I'll add too, I read regularly Lancaster Farming, that's Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where a lot of the Anabaptists are, but it's a very developed farming area. And I get their magazine, which it's weekly, and it has just an excellent summary of national articles from all over the country. Those controlled agricultural buildings are failing left and right around the country. So people are putting them in with great expectations, and they are not economically justified. It's common to have big plans and then and cancel them before they get built or go out of business after they're built, currently at least. So we have expanded other retail and service type commercial businesses from 5% of land area to 30%, and we've better defined how that percentage is measured. We had to go through a pretty big set of gymnastics to figure out what 5% of land area meant when we approved that landscaper at 1025 West Center Town Line Road. And we clarified that multiple permitted uses are allowed on the same lot in the same building. Parking, so changing from fundamental uses to some of the accessory things here. The code requires off-street parking spaces on paved parking lots in limited industrial and commercial. The code requires a special permit for overnight parking. And sometimes one or both requirements are not followed by business, especially when the business has outgrown its facility. So here we go again, that's the same picture. So some of these things were there overnight without permits. This is a very small lot. It requires backing in off of the road. It's probably not as bad as it could be because it's just a town road. But not ideally, you'd want a lot like this where you'd drive in a specific parking lot and there's plenty of room to turn around and do whatever you need to without all the rigmarole that goes on here to fit all this on a single lot. This area was paved. You may remember that from our site plan, and we required them to fill part of this back in with grass. I'm not sure it's done yet, and to change some things up here. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the future. But that's the other thing. They tend to want to, on small areas, they tend to want to pave right out to the road. It's unsafe because you've got lots of places for people to drive in and drive out in multiple locations at the same time. And frankly, it's just downright ugly. You can see how much more attractive this is, where you have grassy areas in the front of a single driveway. But of course, it takes more land. So here's an example from a summer or two ago, where this is right next door to 1025. And here is the so-called landscape mall where the parking lot is set back with a single driveway, but they ran out of room. So they're parking on the grass in the so-called landscape mall, parking in the parking lot setback. And that's the reason that the current code requires curbs, I think, so people can't drive in there and park as easily. That may be overkill. We'll talk more about that. But you notice also back here is a whole bunch of outside storage racks. At least they're behind the building. They're not necessarily screened as good as they could be, but that's not allowed by the current code. And over here, if you can see that, are some utility boxes. I'm not sure what they all are, but they're kind of unsightly in front of the building, and that's probably a poor location for those as well. So more outside storage, that same old picture. This is a trailer that's kind of parked there permanently. That white thing, this gray thing back here is a roll-off that's there semi-permanently. There's various pallets and supplies out here. You notice the dumpsters are right up on the lawn. I'll come back to that. And all of these things are in the front setback, which is not a desirable situation. So dumpster and tote visibility matters. You may be able to guess where some of these are, maybe not. This is in Honeyway Falls. This is probably the, I'll say, furthest point north for dumpster screening. And you see that in some locations where their dumpsters are actually inside an enclosure. These doors have to be open, swung out of the way for the garbage trucks to get to them. This is the Dunkin' Donuts in Honeyway Falls. You notice all the curbs around it as well. This is on Middle Road in Henrietta. So Middle Road is to the left in this picture. This is 390 up here, going right behind it. I'll show you some more pictures from that property. But this is what often happens to this kind of good situation where you've got doors screening dumpsters, and that eventually the doors get broken, they get left open, and you're looking at the dumpster anyway, or not everything fits inside, so you get a dumpster right next to it. I'm not saying this is the end of the world, at least this is the back of the property. But I think you gotta know what you're getting into when you approve dumpster locations, and you ought to have a requirement to consider dumpster locations. And again, this is my favorite picture, dumpsters right out by the road in the front lawn. And here's in the hamlet, and if you can see these right here is a row of about 4 or 5 totes right up along the road. Not very attractive. This is in High Tech Drive. This picture was actually taken from High Tech Drive Road itself. The road is kind of bends around this green building at 90 High Tech Drive. And you can see how pretty that looks with having the dumpsters there and the garbage truck picking up everything right there along the road. Certainly very visible to the road. So this is that famous 120, section 12060 landscape mall section. This is partly very, very good and partly very, very bad. But it reads, as a condition to the issuance of a permit for any commercial use in a commercial district or any industrial use in industrial or limited industrial district, the owner shall construct a mall at least 20 feet in width, measured at right angles to the highway, immediately adjacent to the highway on which the land abuts, along the entire frontage of the property. Such mall shall have a concrete curb or similar structure at least 1 foot high on each side of said mall. So what is a similar structure to a 1 foot curb? And I think Henrietta, believe it or not, Henrietta has the same requirement in their, I think it's in their commercial zones. And they just define a 1 foot curb as 6 inches reveal, 6 inches underground. The owner shall plant such mall with grass or other plants for ground cover. A maximum of 25% of the frontage may be excluded from the mall for access drives. So instead of having a driveway, this allows the owner of the property to pave 25% of the frontage. So how's that been applied in the past? Well, this is that 1025 Rush Henrietta Town Line Road landscaper. And remember, we said they had to bring this area back to 20 feet as required for the landscape mall. And they had to knock this paved distance down to 25% of the whole frontage. So they had to turn this back to grass. Because again, the businesses often, whether they have small lots, want to pave right out to the road. On the other hand, here are some landscape malls in Rush. This is Tough Trucks, formerly the Dorsal property. Off of the west end of the road, there's a nice driveway coming in. Landscape mall here, or parking lot setback. They have this little fence here, and I wonder if that is a so-called quote 12 foot or 12-inch barrier. I don't know why else that's there, but maybe they followed the code and used that as a 12-inch barrier. But here's downtown Hamlet, right? This is the Big End property over here. Here's the 7-Eleven taken from across the road, which would have been near Papa's Auto. Landscape malls, set back from the road. Landscape malls in Rush. So this is the southwest parts of High Tech Drive, which really are very nicely done. This is optimation. They have a driveway coming in, grassy areas everywhere else, internal driveways set back from the road. Similar to the dentist's office, they have a single driveway coming in and grass set back to parking lots internally. Very, very attractive. So this is my slide. It says landscape malls are nearly everywhere. You just don't call them landscape malls. This is a new Taco Bell in Henrietta on Lehigh Station. This is Phillips European, just off of East Henrietta Road. That might actually be Brighton. This is the Avon McDonald's and the Avon Land Pro John Deere dealer. This is Honeoye Falls, Dunkin' Donuts as landscape malls, and even Family Dollar and Walgreens. That is common practice. So this is, Avon has their own tech drive. They don't call it high tech, but they call it tech drive. And it has pretty good parking lot setbacks as well. There's no curbs there because I think the setbacks are quite a bit bigger where they have the land to do it. They just don't require all the curbs. Here's a few older examples. This one is in Avon, where there's a used car dealer over here. You recognize this intersection of 5 and 20 and West End Road. This car dealer has a setback where he's got a grassy area in front, looks so much better than this car dealer across the street, which they have paved right out to the road. And of course, I showed this before where it can be abuse even when you have a setback. So we have lots of examples of commercial and limited industrial lots in Rush that have so-called landscape malls. The concepts are landscape setbacks are attractive and should be required for all internal driveways and parking lots, but they're better described as parking lot setbacks. Use of curbs can be appropriate in congested high traffic areas to prevent driving and parking on lawns and for pedestrian safety. Stop the cars from coming up on sidewalks. But curbs are not appropriate on all large business lots, so the current landscape mall code is excessive. Curb use should be discretionary and decided by the planning board with site plan review and approval. And it's better to embed the parking lot setback and curb requirements within the limited industrial and commercial code sections and delete that strange, obscure, standalone landscape mall section. And we propose to do just that once both LI and C commercial proposals are adopted. And we talked about this maximum 25% of frontage may be excluded. We talked about how they had to cut this back to 25%. But even that's not enough. Paving parking lots all the way up to the road is not only ugly, but it's not safe. Other towns restrict business access to one or two one-way or two-way driveways with minimum distances apart if more than one, and new code proposals should specify that. They do specify that. Vehicle ingress and egress should indeed be limited to specific lanes with specific driveways. So traffic queues up, lines up, and is not able to randomly enter and leave the road in close proximity to other entering or leaving vehicles. Again, it's both appearance and safety. Loading dock and door location. Rush has a requirement for off-road loading and unloading space. In other words, the code says that, at least in limited industrial, you have to have a provision of a certain size for loading and unloading trucks. That's in addition to your parking spaces. But Rush has no requirements for the location of loading docks or garage doors on buildings. Other towns typically do not allow loading docks and garage doors on the front of a commercial or limited industrial building. Exceptions would be for vehicle service stations and possibly for warehouses and distribution centers. So here's two examples in Rush. This is Cuca Studios at 1011 Rush Center Town Line Road. They have one or two garage doors down here. This was a big new addition they put on about 2 years ago with a garage door on it. Not the end of the world, but it could have been done better. This is that same 1025 Rush Center Town Line Road when nothing was parked there. And of course, they have a very small lot and there's really no room to drive around the back. So that garage door is there. Admittedly, this requirement of having garage doors on the sides or back or loading docks on the sides or back could drive the requirement for bigger lots. This is an example on Middle Road in Henrietta. This is the front of a building. There are a whole series of these buildings of this size that go up and down Middle Road for a distance there. You notice this is the face of Middle Road and there's no garage doors there. There is one on this end. That's the south end, and that's the same door as this one. But look at the back of the building. Just door after door after door of loading docks behind the building. So the front looks nice. The back is where the loading and unloading is done. And in Rush, this is Sealand, the lady who was just here. Is the owner of Sealand, and the front of the building looks very nice. They have parking lot setbacks. An individual driveway here and another one way up here. So the front of the building looks very attractive. But in the wintertime, you can be on 390 and you can look at the back of the building. In fact, you can see this from High Tech Drive would be on the south side of the building. There is a loading dock, I'm sorry, a garage door over here. So that would be over here where you can't see it. But on the back of the building are 3 loading docks, just like I showed you on Middle Road. So the best buildings all do this already. This is nothing new. New code proposals specify that loading docks and garage doors should be restricted to the sides and rear of commercial and limited industrial buildings, with exceptions for service stations and self-storages and warehouses. Another concern is warehouses. We've already seen that Rush can be an attractive location for warehouses, such as proposed more rezoning request. After all, we are near interstate interchange. We're at the gateway to a substantial city and suburbs, so we have a lot of available open land area. The LI code does allow distribution centers with a few significant restrictions. The minimum lot area shall be 2 acres and no more than 25% of the land area in each limited industrial district may be used for such purpose. Here's an example again on Middle Road. This is ABF Freight. You notice it's a pretty small scale. The front of the building does not have any loading docks. They're all on the side, but it is pretty small scale. It's only about a 6,700 square foot building. It's on an almost 5-acre lot, and they do have a lot of paved area for trucks and turning around and backing, about 1,000 square feet of paved area. So that's not so bad, but what about this? Is this something that we want to see in Rush? I know some towns that have acres and acres and miles of this kind of stuff going in, and I'm from the Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania. And going down the way I go, you run by these things just mile after mile going into that Lehigh Valley area. And it's hard to figure out what you're looking at here. The dark areas are warehouse roofs of warehouses. The light areas are the space for paved space between them for trucks backing in and turning around. Is that something we want to see in Rush? I don't think so. On the other hand, one example that's very nearby is Oregon Freeze Dry. It's 1,000 Gresham Road right across from High Tech Drive. It's about 60,000 square foot building on 12 acres. Our new code proposes a maximum of 50,000 square feet, so about this size, but it allows larger buildings with a special permit from the planning board. So we talked quite a bit about how we would stop huge warehouse facilities like this from coming in, but not turn down some good substantial businesses. And that's what we came up with essentially. I lost my place. Okay. Again, talking about enclosed growing operations. The current town code that was just changed, I think, this year or early this year, or maybe late last year. It talks about the right to undertake agricultural practices, but the last sentence I have here in red talks about due weight and consideration shall be given to both traditional customs and procedures in the farming industry, as well as to advances resulting from increased knowledge and improved technologies. So my question is, what about a 250,000 square foot enclosed hydroponic factory building in a residential district if growing operations like that are allowed in residential, because agriculture is allowed in residential? This is what they can look like inside and outside. So our new LI code proposal permits enclosed growing operations as a light industrial district. The code committee, when we get to residential, which we are not at yet, but close to getting to, may want to exclude enclosed growing operation from residential uses when we get there. This is about commercial and limited industrial building appearance. Rush once had an architectural review board. Sometime prior to 2003, Chapter 2 of the town code had that title. That's as far back as our history and E-code goes. So I couldn't actually pull out what it was, but I could see a change was made in 2003 to something that was called the Architectural Review Board. There is a section on restricted business RB districts in our town code. We don't have any areas in the town designated as that district. But that write-up says the design of structures must be of uniform architectural style and treatment and shall be in harmony with other development on the same property and on neighboring properties and with environmental factors. And there's another section or subsection that refers to in the opinion of the building inspector, the planning board, or the architectural review board. So clearly the town used to have an architectural review board. And John, I think you mentioned that you remember when that was disbanded, right?
I remember when it was disbanded and the supervisor came to the planning board and asked us to take on that responsibility.
But there's nothing in the
There's
town code
nothing
that gives us that responsibility, right? So again, you could argue this is nothing new either. But consider the different buildings in High Tech Drive. The northeast ones are primarily simple metal pole barn structures. I showed you those with the garage doors on the front. They clearly are metal pole barns. Would we want that in the hamlet? Would we want that in the Big M, the former Big M lot next door as a replacement for any existing building in the hamlet? On any major road or entrance to the town? I think we would have higher expectations than simple metal pole barns. The current code does not at all consider appearance for new commercial and limited industrial buildings. Our new code proposal adds architecture as a planning board responsibility with ability to hire consultants with the cost going to the applicants. Now, this is my personal opinion. My expectation is that most new site plans will have attractive buildings because they'll read this and they'll know that this exists in the code, and because most owners want that too. I know one proposal for the Big M lot, John will probably remember that too. They made a big deal about by the appearance of the proposal, which was, I think, a little drugstore and some other uses over there. And they actually had the coloration, the building color and design that it fit very nicely with the town hall. That was kind of their guiding principle. So I don't expect this to be a problem very often, but when it's needed, you know, we need that authority because somebody's trying to put up something that really is unattractive at an important position. That'll be a crucial requirement for us. So that, by the way, that would require a change to our site plan application. It will have to, when this comes about, it will have to say front, side, and rear elevations and renderings, in addition to all the other stuff they have to provide for commercial and limited industrial. Farming and commercial and limited industrial districts. Farming appears to be prohibited in commercial districts within that C code. Yet it is routinely done in Rush to the east of Weston Road and south of Route 251, west of Honeyway Creek. So that again is behind Diamond Limousine. Farming is also not listed as a permitted use in limited industrial districts. Farming is listed as a permitted use in restricted business districts. But again, we don't have any of those in the town. So our proposal is permit vegetable and field crop farming in both of those districts as a way to utilize land, while requiring site plan approval for other farm uses. So if this was approved for L Crew landscaping, J Crew landscaping, that could be significant. As of right now, we're bound to the current code, whatever it is. So there is a question about whether New York State Ag and Markets Law supersedes our town code, and we'll have to cross that bridge when we get there. Nobody seems to be really sure at this point. So that about ends the presentation of why we're proposing what we are, what the problems are in the current code. So my conclusions are the Rushtown Code appears to be overly restrictive for general uses in limited industrial districts and in both commercial and allied districts for some other accessory uses like outside storage. Yet the code fails to provide some basic safeguards for appearance and aesthetics and even driveway safety in all business districts. New code proposals will be a huge benefit toward better support of businesses, allowing more businesses to come in, and at the same time provide better safeguards against abuses, visually and safety wise. And my hope is that a more appropriate code could enable better code compliance and enforcement. This is our J. Crew example, where there's a lot of stuff going on there in that lot that has not been approved as of yet. This is the lot where Ferguson Electric is interested in building on. And it was used by Sealand for a lot of parking, a lot of storage of road barriers, and there's this big mound of who knows what back here. So how that got there and why that's not been enforced is a good question. But my hope is that when we have very reasonable laws, we can get to the point that we feel very comfortable enforcing the laws we do have. So this is 9:35. No, 9:25. So this is worth 50 minutes. You got to ask some more questions to make it an hour. But I will send everybody here a certificate, and I've already supplied this to Pam, which is one of the requirements for chairman given training.
I
So-
think we were allowed a 10-minute break that we didn't get.
That must be it. That must be it.
When I take it, if we had 50 hours, 50 minutes equals. a full
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. And it clearly was 50 minutes. That's not cheating. We'll call it an hour. So any questions? I was so thorough that there are no questions, but does it sound reasonable what we've done? I mean, the expectations will be higher.
Yeah.
We'll be much more flexible in what I think needs to be where we need the flexibility. But at the same time, we're gonna have higher requirements in other areas. It'll be interesting to see what people like Rebecca Gwelly have to say, if there's any things they object to in it. Doesn't mean it gets changed. That's up to the town board, but
Lot of work went into it.
I'm very pleased. I really am. What a very good, productive group.
What do you think the town board would need to see? So the town board has had presentation on limited industrial.
Yes,
Uh,
they loved it.
The next,
Okay.
I'll add you into Amber.
I wouldn't.
so on November, what, 6th?
Yeah,
Is the plan for the commercial and the mixed
UH.
use Hamlet.
interested in waiting it. I think most people who are down in on the down board
Right,
have been very receptive to these changes.
right.
You know, we were trying to describe them all along. And certainly, talking about how they kind of fit in with the recommendations of the updated comprehensive plan. So we are fulfilling a lot of the stuff, the recommendations before in the comprehensive plan.
And that's the benefit of having this John, because he represents the comprehensive plan too. He can keep it straight in that regard.
To me, they, you know, I'm one member, but I think it's the business, but yet good for the town. You know, permitting more things, but then with certain of the descriptions with the loading doors, you know, in the back and the, you
Right.
know, the dumpsters and all that kind of stuff, and then, and the landscape walls, whatever. To make a nice appearance, allow things, but still make it nice.
Yep.
In the town, so
Yep.
that things aren't running out to the street. As you show in your favorite photo, I agree, you can see the difference, and there's no reason why we can't have a nice looking town, yet, you know, be favorable to a lot of business.
Right.
One tidbit of information that I'll show to our little code committee when we start working residential is that I used to get the newspaper and it used to have it kept records of house sales in all the towns in the area,
Yeah,
and it would look at average prices of the
Yes.
property sold, right?
Yes.
And of course, Rush is always dead last in number of sales and residents, right? Because we're the smallest. But in terms of the price of the homes, we're in the top 20%, right up there with Webster and Barrington. Not quite up to Mendon and Pittsford, but we're right up there in the top 20%. So this is not a rinky-dink town. As my builder, Jim Sickles, says, there's a lot of expensive houses in those hills. There's no reason businesses shouldn't look good too. Okay,
All right.
I
well, thank you
think we're
very much.
done.
Thank you, Scott.
Anything else? Make a motion, we adjourn. Oh,
I have two things. You have in front of you the Association of Towns, tag team.
okay, I got that at home.
I'm gonna recommend that we change the addresses on them to send them directly to your home. Is there anybody that doesn't want to send them home?
That'd be fine with me.
You would
Yeah,
get it
okay.
at a more time like
That's
that.
fine with me.
Um,
As long as it doesn't somehow cost the town more, for sending individually rather than bundles.
the other thing I gotta say that I spent a lot of time on, was printing documents. And I questioned whether or not you all want them printed, but I see, after attending my first meeting, you guys are really using those printed documents. So,
Yeah, I
Unless,
think we do.
unless somebody doesn't want them and wants to use them on their computer, let me know, otherwise. We can keep printing. But I did question it now.
I'm guessing we still want to. So we always bring our own application documents because, we get the hard copies of those. We don't expect anybody to print additional copies. But it's nice to get all the others at the meeting. Otherwise, I'm using my home printer.
And if you need anything from me, please let me know.
Okay.
I'm gonna do my best to be very productive.
So far, so good. Okay, anything else? Then I'll make a motion that we adjourn. Is that second?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, carry.
Right, or once that's anything, we'll make sure.